Intro to Philosophy, PL 100, Lecture 1. In this lecture we shall consider basically two questions. Number one, what really is philosophy? And the second one, why philosophy? What for? Why should we do philosophy? It is obvious that, and most people will agree, that among living things, it is human beings. They are humans who are endowed with what we should call reason or mind. Other forms of life, other animals, even higher animals, do not show any signs that they have mental curiosity, that they are thinking, that they are surprised with existence. A human, however, has ability to think, thought, and capacity for reflection. The human animal is asking questions. Why am I here? Why is there a universe at all? Who or what am I? What can I believe? What should I do? How much or what can I know? Therefore, man is a seeker for truth by nature. Somehow we know that to live in falsehood, in somehow destructive way, doesn't lead to any positive results. It cannot lead to anything that we would consider good. Ultimately, the most fundamental questions of life are precisely centered in one question. What is the meaning of life? Is there any meaning to life? Does life, my existence on earth, make any sense whatsoever? Does it lead to any meaningful purpose, an end, positive end, or is there any end to it? So the question of meaning of life is central for anybody who has the minimal degree of intelligence. The animals live within the context of the here and the now. They respond to the stimuli from the environment. They go through the cycle of birth, development, propagation, and disappear. Man, however, is a seeker and a wanderer. How come I exist at all? What when I die? Is there any sense in believing that there is some existence after death? All people are aware of the inevitability of dying. We all are mortal. To be mortal means that we cannot escape an end to our biological existence here. That our days are counted, the time inevitably carries us towards death. Man is aware of dying, a necessity of dying, and man also is curious about what actually is death. What does it mean to die? Human beings, from the beginning of mankind, from the beginning of the appearance of men on earth, until this very day, and all those who come after us, all those millions and billions before us, living now, there are about more than 7 billion people living on the earth today, and also those who will come later, will have to face those fundamental questions. Is there any sense of believing in God, for example? Is there any reason to believe in afterlife? We have no inborn knowledge. A human being must learn from the very beginning not only the most fundamental ways of living biologically, but also mentally must grow, develop, and constantly solve the problems of life and also the fundamental, ultimate questions. What happens when I die? Is that the final end? Is time carrying me into absolute nothingness? There were those philosophers in the past and even today who will say, yes, this is the end of man. Man appears all of a sudden. We don't know why. He lives for a while, does something here and there, and disappears into nothingness. He's like a light of a candle blown out at the moment of dying. But the majority of mankind, through many centuries, believed that death is not the final end of man, that there is some sort of life after the grave. Especially the philosophers of religions. All religions, at least the main religions, like Judaism, Christianity, Mahometanism, Hinduism, all believe in some sort of afterlife. Is there any sense of believing this or not? In order to live a human life, I must have a direction in my life. And it is my personal duty to find out on my own some answers to those questions which sooner or later, sometime, I will have to face in my life. And the reason is very simple. Unless I answer those questions in some way, I will have no direction in my life. My life will be meaningless, finally. It would be a drifting. It would not really be a self-directed living. In order to solve those questions, I must decide for thinking, for reflection. I must be determined to follow my mind, my reason, wherever it leads. Philosophy, therefore, requires a determined courage to think for yourself. I cannot follow simply the many others because, first of all, I am not many, I'm one, I am an individual. Second, I must live my life, not somebody else's life. I must, because I am an individual person. In a way, I am unique, and therefore, philosophy is a must. Philosophy is inevitable duty of any responsible human being. Do I have to do it? Yes, I have to. It's a duty. But finally, we must also realize that man is free. I cannot force people to think for themselves if they don't want it, if they refuse to do it. And there are those who do refuse to do it. Because serious thinking is, first of all, not easy. It's difficult. Number two, it is in a way scary. When I start facing those ultimate questions on my own, I may come to conclusions which will be somehow surprising to myself. I may come to a point in which it will be a duty for me to change my life, to start living in a different way, to realize different values in my existence. Sometimes we can call it conversion, if you like. And many individuals, famous people in history, precisely went through this kind of change. They were able to turn around, so to speak, 180 degrees in their lives. And those people, in general, were very important creative individuals in the history of mankind. Whether they were great warriors, perhaps philosophers, perhaps religious leaders, or founders of religion, they were like beams of light in the semi-darkness of our existence. Think about people like Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, about people like Moses, people like Abraham, about people like Jesus Christ. And in more modern times, people, for example, like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, or Martin Luther King Jr. People who reverse, to a great extent, history. We also have those giants of science, Schrödinger, Albert Einstein, all those who reversed our understanding of nature, the great astronomers, archaeologists, biologists, physicists, psychologists, and so on and so on. All those who accomplished anything durable did it because they had the courage to think, they had the courage to ask, and they had the courage to be different, even when being different was very costly, or perhaps even calling for sacrifice of their lives. Now, each human being has somehow to understand, to have a vision of reality. Philosophy is precisely this. It is a determined, passionate search for truth, for the meaning of being human, for the really real, in contrast to fantasy, wishful thinking, shallow ideologies, false scientific theories. Because somehow we know that to live in falsehood, in superficiality, leads and must lead to some sort of final disaster. This is one point. The second is also that man is by nature a moral animal. Human beings have what we call conscience. Conscience is sensitivity to the moral good or moral evil. It is my judgment about the value, the moral color, so to speak, of my decisions, of my intentions, of my actions in my life. Moral values are extremely important, central to human life. And conscience is given to all human beings. There are no people who just are completely blind unless they purposely make themselves blind to moral values. Are there such people? Of course there are. And if we ask why this happens, we must say that individuals like this go for the easy living, for their own comfort, for their own material biological satisfactions, for impermanent values in the society in which they happen to live. There are many like this, because as we mentioned before, man is free. If someone doesn't want to think, I cannot force him to do it. He can lie, he can pretend, he can cheat, and so on. We always can find excuses, because to do seriously philosophy, we need time, solitude, periods of aloneness, honest and serious confrontation with ourselves, self-criticism, and the art of serious logical thinking. We all have minds, but not all use their minds. Not all are able to use minds in a proper way. There are all kinds of seeming arguments, of seeming truths, which do not really stand up to serious critical evaluation. Philosophy requires self-discipline and absolute determination to go and believe wherever argument, evidence, serious leads me, no matter what the price. And if you take a look into human history, we know that people are capable of giving up their physical life for their beliefs. They are able to die for what they believe no matter what. They are capable of giving their lives because in their conscience, physical life is less important than fundamental eternal truth. To give just one example, if we think about Christianity, we know that the first Christians during the Roman persecutions, almost 300 years, had to pay for being a Christian openly with their lives. They were burned, they were given to ferocious animals in the circus in Rome. They were persecuted in all means, all ways possible. But Christianity grew, and gradually, even the Roman Empire was full of Christians. And Caesar himself became a Christian. The vision of life, the convictions which we carry, are essential to our everyday being. Why? Because the way you think, you will act. The way you act, you will live. And the way you live, you will become, at the end, what you really decided so many times in your life. After all, life is a big string of decisions. Because even if I decide not to make a decision, I have to decide not to make a decision, which means I make a decision. A human being lives not only by instincts, by the animal needs which we share with other living forms, but also with the vision of reality. Because the essential difference between other animals and man is a seeker for truth. Man has a mind to search for the ultimate, even reality. This is one thing. What is philosophy? Philosophy is a determined, courageous seeking for the ultimate truth. And nobody who is mentally sound, most normally developed, is allowed to take a dispensation from it. Because to refuse to think for yourself is to refuse to live a human life.